On today's episode of Beyond Resilience, our hosts, Dr. Jamie Renbarger and Catherine Haffey, are bringing you their top 5 ways to support your health as a human being and as a person affected by cancer.
So excited to be with you today, Jamie. I always love when we get together like this. It's so fun.
Yes, I agree. It's it's lovely to be here and just to have a chance to connect and talk. So today we are going to spend a little time talking about our top 5 list for ways people can stay healthy and can support their health and wellness as human beings, and in this particular case, as human beings impacted by cancer.
Amen.
Yeah. So, and really, we plan this, just FYI for anybody out there listening, but we really plan this as an introduction. These are all specific topics and specific tips that we could spend lots of time talking about as individual tips or guidelines. And today we're really going to give an overview, talk through some of the things that we think are most important in living a healthy life, and why they're important at a kind of higher level. And then we'll subsequently have more in-depth conversations about each of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll unpack these probably individually if I had to bet, because there's a lot under each one. But today, and I would say, to a listener out there, if you are not a cancer survivor or who has been impacted by cancer, but maybe you know of someone who might have had cancer, these tips would be amazing to be able to share with them. And I would encourage that this is basically for anyone and everyone who wants to improve their overall general health. But if there's someone that a loved one, friend, family member who has been impacted by cancer, please do share these, and hopefully they'll be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would add to that that these concepts or tips are also important in living a life as a way to prevent getting cancer, so to decrease your risk of cancer overall.
Yep.
So really they're useful for anyone and everyone out there.
Absolutely, they are. Yes.
Yes,
all of us. Well, let's dive in. We've got the top 5. I would say the first one is, I think that we both kind of agreed on this, is really stress management, and that is a deep topic that we will definitely unpack. There's a lot to this, and I think a lot of people have to deal with anxiety, depression, fear, and it's just something that really needs to be managed and mediated. And I think, giving some tools to be able to do this is going to make your life so much better, and the world just a better place when we can have less stress and less anxiety and fear.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is such an important one. And I do want to mention, just for those of you that are listening to our conversation, that all of these tips are going to be available as a file that you can download. So feel free to take any notes that you want, but know that you will have access to our list of tips, as well as some show notes.
Yes.
So that you can be fully engaged in listening and taking it all in.
Yeah.
So stress and anxiety, to come back to that, is, I think as we, as the medical field, right, have learned more and more about stress and about chronic stress. We know now that goes along with an increase in stress hormones in our bodies.
Yeah.
Right. And often you feel that, right? There's everyone has their own experience of what stress or anxiety feels like in your body. And that is often associated with specific stress hormones or a stress response, and things like cortisol and adrenaline in some cases. And we know that elevated levels of stress hormones over time, so chronically elevated levels of stress hormones, actually can increase this basically inflammation in our bodies, right? So they make our bodies think that they are responding to a stress, to an insult, right? And over time, that chronic inflammation and chronic stress can not only increase your risk for things like heart disease and metabolic syndrome, and diabetes, but also cancer.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's so important to really, one, acknowledge stress and anxiety that you're feeling, and spend some time working on that, processing that. Yeah.
So it is a big one for sure. And I think studies have shown that despite any healthy habits that we're trying to include or change in our bodies, so we're trying to boost our immune system and we're trying to do all these other things that are allowing us to eat healthy, stress can really undo a lot of that. So we really do need to give it a respect and credence to try to find not just a way of like, well, it's just how I've always been, or it's just my personality, but really try to dig in and say, you know what, I need to really mediate this. Like it's time for me to manage this and move on to a more neutral, happy, joyful place in your life. And there are definite ways that can help out there, right? And we can share, I don't know if you wanted to share any techniques or ideas today that somebody might be able to, kind of grasp on as a golden nugget. I mean, for one of them, for me, it comes to mind is gratitude. Sometimes it's really difficult to be in a stressful place and also have a heart or be in a place of gratitude. So for me, gratitude journaling has helped. Just 3 things that I'm grateful for. And I can feel my heart rate and my breath becomes deeper. My heart rate comes slower, and I'm able to really breathe in that gratitude of whatever and it can be simple or complex, but that's one thing that has worked for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it is, there are so many different approaches that one can take, and it's a very personal journey. I think the first step is really acknowledging that you have the feelings, and not ignoring them or pushing them down, and spending time processing and implementing whatever techniques work for you. And definitely gratitude journaling is one of them. And we'll dive into lots of specifics in an episode that's really dedicated to stress and anxiety. But key is, one, I think, just not to ignore it. I think, our culture is stressful. Living in the world today can be a really stressful experience. And then when you layer on that life experiences like having cancer and getting treatment for cancer, as well as a whole myriad of other life stressors, that it can become really, really significant.
That's so true. And I think just our digital life, that we're always stimulated, the excess and overstimulation constantly that we have, I think, kind of adds to that.
Absolutely.
Can exacerbate maybe an underlying chronic condition and make it worse, because we're just never on call. We go to bed, we wake up with our phone and whatever it is we're looking, and unless we're really intentional about it,
right,
it can just get nasty.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so to your point earlier, I think a key is that any lifestyle changes that we're doing to really, or lifestyle approaches that one is taking to support being healthy, it's also important to acknowledge stress and anxiety, because without acknowledgement and actually addressing them.
Right.
Chronic ongoing stress can really undermine lots of other lifestyle modifications.
Sure can.
Yeah.
Sure can.
All right. Well, should we move on?
Let's do.
All right. So, tip number two for ways that you can stay healthy, resume health, prevent cancer. I would say number 2 on my list would be being active.
Amen.
So getting
Yes.
physical activity and including exercise and movement in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine, you want to talk a little bit about how you address that with your clients?
I do. I just gave a talk on this in our Facebook group, so I feel like
Excellent.
I'm pretty well up to date with this.
Primed.
The American Cancer Society has recommended 150 minutes of moderate exercise a week, or 75 minutes of vigorous exercise a week, and that's kind of a scary number. But if you break it down, that's just half an hour, 5 days a week. So
Sure.
Now the key is there's a combination of both aerobic and strength training. So if you did a brisk walk, it might look like 3 days a week, and you get a buddy out there, accountability partner who helps you get going, and you have a time and a place where you're going to meet. So you're committing to that. And then you do resistance training. And I would say if this is the first time, maybe hiring a trainer to make sure you're doing correct technique is a good idea. And then getting a program where you start little, maybe with body weight, and then you move gradually upward. And you do that 2 days a week for half an hour. Set your timer for 30 minutes, and you're done. And that you've checked off that 150 minutes pretty easily. So it's not only great for your health as a cancer patient survivor or person looking into prevention, but you've checked off your health just as a healthy person, period. And you might inspire, somebody else to go out and join you with this. And there's so many benefits of exercise, and we can talk about this more. Jim, what's the first thing that comes to mind, like after you've gone from a great run? Because I know you like to run. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what do you feel like after you've come in from a run?
Yeah. So, such a great question. For me, running is what I do to really help in managing my stress. It's key for me in, that. And I think when I come back from running, I feel energized. Yeah. I feel often happy or happier than I was.
Right.
And just more relaxed. Mm-hmm. So I can sleep better often when I've exercised. And it just, again, there's so much crosstalk with a lot of things on our tip list. Right. And exercise and movement is key. I am curious, though, Catherine, one of the things that I hear as an oncologist caring for people who have been impacted by cancer is that they've gotten out of exercising throughout treatment, and they don't know where to start or how to start. Yeah. It feels overwhelming. Yeah. I guess, one, does that resonate with you? And two, do you have any thoughts or ideas, recommendations on what
sure.
to do?
I think the biggest, aid would be to try to get an accountability partner. So if you can talk to a friend, a family, a loved one, a mate, a partner, to just be able to, just to get you going. And I think sometimes it's just starting, mm-hmm. but I love to call this until exercise can become a habit. It's easy. It's just, we call it habit stacking, and Atomic Habits, James Clear talks about this. If you brush your teeth every morning, which I hope we all do, you put your running shoes or your workout shoes next to wherever it is you're going to go to the bathroom and brush your teeth. And so it's sitting right there. Maybe you have your workout clothes all right there too. So you're seeing that, right? And you're remembering, you're as a reminder, okay, I'm brushing my teeth. I do that anyways. It's a habit. And I'm going to stack this new habit that I'm trying to form on top of that existing habit. And I'm reminded I need to go for my walk this morning. And so if you're doing it solo, you do it solo. If you're doing it with an accountability partner, then you text your friend and say, hey, I'm going to meet you outside in 10 minutes at a time and a place. And you maybe even write that down. So you're committing to it. You have your workout gear all ready. You can't go crawl back in bed. It's all right there. And so you do these certain intentional things that as a reminder, and the more you do them, the easier it'll get. And the more that you kind of establish that pattern, and if you can stack it with an existing habit that you're already doing, that helps tremendously. So, what that might look like, again, if you're walking, if you're going to a gym, same thing. You set out whatever it is you're going to wear to the gym, and you have maybe you hold your trainer to accountability. Hey, could you text me? Or you hold your friend, and I'm on my way. I'm paying for this session. That's always a good incentive. You've got some money, some skin in the game with that, and maybe you just learn how to do basic body weight. And of course, I would recommend you always get your doctor's permission before you start any kind of exercise program, if you need to. And at least if you've never done this before, so that, you're doing correct technique for resistance training. But there's so much new data out there on resistance training and helping us combat fatigue without getting too sciencey. But it involves the mitochondria, as our energy cell, and it just really releases ATP and it helps us feel better. That's that energy. So the hardest part is just really getting going. But if we do certain steps, certain ideas, which of course we'll unpack this, if we do certain intentional steps, it's just once we get going after the first week, we write it down. Maybe we have sticky notes everywhere. We have a partner. We commit to ourselves as this is what's going to allow me to feel better and have more energy. And it's exactly what you don't feel like doing, right? But if we do these certain steps, that might help. But I certainly hope it does.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Often, as you said, right, getting back into the habit or getting into developing a habit for the first time can be so challenging.
Sure.
Sometimes superimposed on that for people impacted by cancer is things like deconditioning, right? Someone who's been used to, as I know you were, right, used to being very active, and now their body just isn't doing what they're used to, or isn't as strong as it used to be, as resilient as it used to be, can sometimes happen. And then, in some cases, depending on treatments that people have gotten, development of things like peripheral neuropathy, numbness or tingling or weakness in their feet and legs, or hands and fingers, can be really frustrating. And so we'll dive into all of this more when we talk specifically about this topic. But it's complicated, and I think we're here to say it's so important, and we want to be able to support you to navigate this and to figure out how you can be successful. It's a little different for everyone. Everyone's story and experience is unique. And so we really want to be able to help you in figuring out how to navigate this.
Absolutely. And it's just it reminds me of, this is just Nike, but this is just do it. It's one of those things you just got to do it. And it is hard. And if it's not one thing, it'll be another. And if it's not another, it'll be something else. It's just one of those things that you almost have to just tell yourself this is a non-negotiable to my health. There's so much supportive information out there that showed that exercise helps with side effects of these hormonal drugs that many of these cancer patients are on, and then helps with recurrences. And we want to live our very best life. And then the hardest part is just maybe doing what we don't feel like doing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we don't feel like doing, and what sometimes has become much more difficult than it used to be.
Yes.
So,
yes.
yeah. So we're all that to say we're here, and we hear you, and we want to be able to support everyone
We sure
on
do.
what can be a challenging, really challenging journey back to health. So.
Yes. Yep.
All right. So exercise is number 2. Number
Yes.
3. Where do we want to go next?
Oh, you know me, I think of food.
Food. I am kind of hungry now. Yes, food.
I'm thinking of food. Food is medicine, right? So,
Okay.
nutrition is so important. And I had a food blog with my sister, and we were cooking all the time, experimenting on different recipes. But I think that when you look at food as medicine, you're going into that produce department in your grocery store and you're looking at all this color, and we look at that differently, as that is what's going to help me heal from cancer. That's what's going to help me get healthier. That's what's going to help my body turbocharge my immune system and allow me to get stronger and allow me to think clear and allow my heart to stay healthy and allow me to reduce the chances of recurrence. I mean, there's so many amazing things that food does. It's so important that we look at it as really as important as that medicine that we're taking, and being intentional with what we put in our body.
Absolutely. Yeah. So important. I'm curious, when it comes to nutrition, if you were going to recommend 3 nutritional tips or tidbits for people to follow as top priorities, what would be on your list?
I would say the first one is it's simple. It's think about what you're going to add to your plate versus instead of what you're going to take away from your plate. We don't really like to be told what to do, but if we think about changing our food, because it's kind of a personal choice too. If we think about what we get to add to our plate, so we get to add that extra big helping of salad or vegetables or fruit, and just realize that this is just so good for me in all of its color. And then there's a lot of studies on sulforaphane in broccoli. So I would say, if you're a broccoli lover, go for it. There's a lot of recipes where you can really incorporate a lot of broccoli, whether it's in a soup or whether it's in a salad or whether it's in a smoothie even, and you really can't taste it. I can tell you that. Broccoli sprouts are even better. So and maybe we should do like an episode on how to grow broccoli sprouts, because that might be kind of interesting. And then, lastly, I would just say there's so many good things, but I would just say the Allium family, where you're eating a lot of onions and garlic and leeks, and if you can start out a recipe with the aromatics of onions and leeks and garlic, honestly, you don't really taste it that much, but the significance of how cancer fighting properties that are in that food group are profound. And so I would say eat a lot of broccoli, eat your onions if you need to cook them.
There you go.
And your garlic, and think about what you get to add, the color to your plate, and not focus on, well, I can't eat this. I mean, definitely there are things we're going to tell you shouldn't be eating, but if we look at it, think, okay, my first step is what I get to add. and I get to add this nutrient dense food to my plate, to my body. And I am, just for cognitive health and heart health and all these wonderful things that food checks off a lot of boxes, right?
Absolutely.
And it's just super important that we look at, okay, well, this is what I get to eat. I get to have this, and instead of what I can't have. So I think it's just a psychological thing, but I think sometimes it can be helpful when we're making changes to our diet.
Absolutely. Love that. Love that. Yeah, it's much harder to think about or to start from a place of the can'ts or should nots, or need to limit. And yet, as an ice cream lover myself, I know that I personally need to be intentional about my sugar intake. At this point in my life, I am healthy. I don't have metabolic syndrome or diabetes or heart disease, and I want to keep it that way.
Absolutely.
And so stay away from the white stuff or limit limiting sugar intake is definitely something that I personally try to live by. It's not always easy, but and I would say, and I'm curious about your take on this as well. I tend not to be a person who says I won't eat any of this, because for me that feels like too much.
Right.
So do you have thoughts or guidance on that?
I mean, my only rule, I would say, is anything that is processed, and you're looking at the back and you're looking at those ingredients, and you cannot pronounce one dang ingredient in there, and you think, yes, what the heck is in there? That's what's going into your body. I would caution to eat that. I think to eat mostly whole foods in their natural state is best. And there are some amazing recipes out there where it's just, we have to learn a new way how to cook, kind of, and how to look, but it's pleasing to the eye. It's yummy on our palate. It's filling. It's high in fiber and, and protein and all this good stuff and tons of antioxidants and phytonutrients. And so I think it's, but I would say, if you're going to cut out anything, something that is processed and you really can't pronounce the ingredients, probably means you shouldn't be eating it. It's as simple as that.
Right. Absolutely. So definitely eliminating or minimizing processed foods, trying to minimize sugar intake.
The white stuff.
And right. And maximizing or really focusing on whole foods and plants, healthy plants, those are all, I think, very useful tips. We'll dive more into details in the specific episode on nutrition. The only other thing that's coming up for me that I wouldn't want to neglect in this particular tip is protein intake,
Yes.
and the importance of protein intake, particularly as we age.
Absolutely.
And again, we'll talk more about that when we talk about nutrition specifically.
Yeah.
So.
And I that kind of goes, protein intake kind of goes with resistance training. They kind of go together. And
Absolutely.
again, we can kind of see how they're married together and why it's super important. Hopefully get you guys really excited to get into a weightlifting program, a super simple, and then make sure that you're having enough quality protein in there, and you're going to look great and feel great. And I'm already really excited for you. So, yeah.
Yes, definitely. And I would say the one thing that's coming up for me as we're having this conversation is we both recognize that making lifestyle changes, particularly at a time when you're in the middle of treatment, when you've recently finished treatment, when you're tired, you're feeling depleted, you're feeling stressed. This is not easy stuff.
No, it's not.
And so our goal is really just to be able to have fun conversations together that hopefully support you to live in the way that you would like to, and know that we're both available to have conversations with you about your specific situation. So
Absolutely.
all right. So with that, we're on to number 4. Sleep is what's coming up for me. Does that sound okay to you?
Yeah, sounds great.
Yes. So getting enough quality sleep is so important in staying healthy.
It is.
Right.
It is.
The mounting evidence out there on the importance of sleep, on the function of your immune system, as well as on the ability of your body to handle nutrients efficiently and to stay healthy is mounting all the time. So, yeah. So with that, quality and quantity.
I mean, what comes up to me are 7 to 9 hours. 7 to 9 hours would be a great goal. And if you need to wear a wearable, there's lots out there that you can actually track your sleep. You can track the quality of sleep that you're getting, the amount of the different stages of sleep. I think my husband wears one, and it's like $65. It's pretty easy, but the data that you get from that is super interesting, and you can definitely feel and tell when you haven't had a good restful night's sleep, either from sleep apnea or some other issues that we'll probably address as we go deeper into this and we impact this issue a little bit more. There are certain specific intentional things that you can do, even if you don't have sleep apnea, just to allow yourself to get into a deeper a sleep stage and for a longer period of time. And so you're really feeling, when you wake up, you're really feeling like restored, refreshed. We all know that feeling when you slept crummy and you wake up and you just feel like you got sucker punched and you still got a really busy day that you've got to tackle. It's just hard. And,
right.
We're more susceptible to sicknesses and, disease and stress and all these things. It's kind of like sleep. And I would say sleep, it kind of feeds into the stress management pillar that kind of get married together again as a foundation, because if we don't get the sleep that we need, it's really difficult to, our sugar cravings go up. I can tell that personally when I'm not slept very well.
Right.
I crave sugar.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm going to have me some sugar. So,
Yes.
it is,
Yes.
it is what it is. But
Yes.
I think that when we sleep well, we're more apt to stay in our exercise regimen. We're excited to go work out. We're excited to eat healthier. And it's just the opposite is true when we're really sleep deprived. We just feel it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And myself, I know I notice it not only in things like my mood, right? I may feel like I'm a little, easier, quicker to anger or in a bad mood, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I just wake up in a bad mood when I haven't gotten enough sleep or haven't gotten good quality sleep. And that feeds into and impacts my level of stress and how I impact others around me. How likely I am to snap at my kids when they haven't really done anything, right? So I also notice my resting heart rate is higher, right?
Yeah.
That is a physiological measure of the fact that my body is feeling more stress.
Right.
So important that we get a good amount of quality sleep. We'll dive into this on the episode on sleep, but certainly there are so many things that can negatively impact sleep, and we'll talk a lot about sleep hygiene and about when to think about sort of our thoughts on when to think about getting evaluated by a sleep expert or to talk with your doctor about a further evaluation or even medications or other things to help with sleep. But one of the things that I want to throw out there is a little bit of pet peeve of mine. There are lots of medications out there that are over the counter that bill themselves as being sleep aids, and I would just caution you on at least on developing a habit out of taking over-the-counter medications that bill themselves as sleep aids without a conversation with your doctor.
That's a good point.
I'm definitely not here to tell you what to do or what not to do. We're not. This isn't about providing any kind of medical advice or guidance, but so important. There are a lot of medications out there that disrupt sleep architecture, right? So they may make you feel sleepy, but in fact, the kind of sleep that you're getting isn't restful quality sleep and can undermine the whole process. So it's complicated and just so important to, if you are having difficulty with your sleep, to be able to have a conversation with your healthcare provider about that.
That is great advice, because you're right, it is so complicated. And we can certainly discuss a sleep routine, and we can share tips. But I think if there's a more serious underlying problem there, it is a good idea to have a discussion with your doctor. And I would even recommend, purchasing a wearable just to kind of validate, so that you got data that you can share with your doctor, and then try to figure out a plan going forward.
Sure.
If it's a more serious issue.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. And with that, we're on to number 5.
The last one.
Number 5 is, I like to think about it as avoiding toxic stuff, avoiding
Right.
poisons that we put into our bodies that are considered socially acceptable in our culture. And those include tobacco and alcohol are really the two I think that we want to touch on. Certainly there are others out there, lots of environmental exposures and other things, and we'll delve more into that when we have an episode specifically focused on this. But suffice to say, there are a lot of chemicals out there, and specifically in this case, chemicals found in tobacco and in alcohol that cause DNA damage.
Yes.
And DNA is really the machinery that tells our body and our cells what to do. It makes us who we are. And with prolonged or significant exposure to things like tobacco and alcohol, we know that the risk for DNA damage goes up, and our body's ability to heal that can also be impaired over time. And so there's a lot of evidence. Certainly smoking is well publicized, right? The risk for not only lung cancer, but a whole variety of other cancers in people who are smokers. Alcohol is another one. That there is a clear association between the risk for a variety of kinds of cancer and high alcohol intake or chronic alcohol intake. So again, we'll talk more about those over time, but want to make sure that's a key one that we want to make sure is on our list. Very simple, maybe simple is not the right word, but very succinct lifestyle modifications, habits that people can include in their lives that can have a profound impact.
I'm sorry. I just want to add one thing. I think that there was studies out there that showed red wine with cardiovascular, a connection between red wine and cardiovascular health. However, more recent studies have debunked that.
Yes.
Daggone, unfortunately.
I know. I love red wine too. So
I think that there's a clear connection. From what I can tell, from what my experience with breast cancer, there's a clear connection with alcohol and breast cancer. And so I have chosen to give that up. It was hard. It was a difficult decision. And every now and then I will indulge in a glass here and there. But I just think when you're even more aware of how many glasses of wine you have, or beer or cocktail, whatever it happens to be, and you're just more aware of that, I think that's the first step. Is just maybe start tracking, are you a nightly drinker? If you're a nightly drinker, is it for stress mediation? And just start kind of being aware of that. And then if so, how many? And then the more that we're aware, we've talked about this a lot with all 5 of these points, right? Basically, that we have to be aware we have some type of issue, but just to be aware of, okay, how many drinks am I really drinking a week?
Yeah.
And then to try to take that number and reduce that and make it into something that's manageable, because it's hard to go cold turkey sometimes unless you're extremely motivated and you see, your doctor saying this or the science says this, and you're very motivated. I'd say go for it. That's awesome. But if you need to take steps to reduce, then that's great too. I would say, the optimal would be let's make a goal and let's get steps so that you're working towards reducing that number of alcohol. And then there are certain, tricks to the trade of when you're going out and if you're going out for dinner and how, and kind of thinking about that ahead of time and how that's going to be, because it can be a social awkward issue that you may not want to draw to yourself, but there are certain ways that you can avoid that and still be the life of the party without that, and have it be really fun and enjoyable. And it's not like you're giving up a lot in life at all. It's just a choice you're making for your health, and it's a selfish choice that you're making for your health. And I think that's what we have to kind of present that as. So I think those are great vibe to start with.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll dive more into this when we talk specifically about sort of toxins and exposures. But you're right. Such an important point that alcohol really is such an important or such a prevalent part of our culture, and using alcohol to numb feelings has really become a kind of socially acceptable approach to managing stress and anxiety and other things that people are feeling. And to your point, sometimes one doesn't even realize how much they're drinking, and given the clear association between alcohol and tobacco, but alcohol in this case, and so many significant chronic health conditions, it's just critical to take a look at it for yourself.
Yeah,
not an easy thing, and so important. So yeah.
So important.
All right. So one more time, our top 5 list. Yeah. Should we do a quick rundown?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go for it.
So, and again, these are our top 5 ways to improve your overall health, improve your health as a human being, as somebody impacted by cancer, and decrease your risk for cancer recurrence or for developing cancer in the first place, as well as a whole myriad of other significant health conditions. Mm-hmm. So, number 1.
Stress management.
Yes. Stress management. Number 2, physical activity.
Yep.
Number 3,
food.
Food is medicine. Yes. Number 4, sleep. Getting enough quality sleep.
Yes.
And number 5,
toxicity.
Yes.
Yeah.
So avoiding or decreasing exposure to things like tobacco and alcohol. There's a whole bunch of others. And we'll again dive into all of these in upcoming episodes.
Yeah. You guys check the show notes, though. We'll have a cheat sheet available that you can download. And we hope that this has been helpful. And if you have any questions or comments, please don't be shy. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are like and subscribe and pass the word on. If this has been helpful to you, please spread the word. We are a beginning podcast and we need your help. And we're here to serve you in the best capacity we can.
All right. Excellent.
Yeah.
So with that, see you next time.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
This podcast is here to support you. If you liked it, please rate, review, follow, and share, since that's the best way to grow a community together. Please leave us comments and feedback. We're here to help.